So leaders of several political parties, including the Freedom Front Plus, the UDM and the ACDP, met yesterday to finalise coalition deals for the hung councils in Gauteng. So in total, there are 8 hung councils in the province, with Johannesburg, Tshwane, Ekurhuleni, Emfuleni and Mogale City among them. The purpose of the meeting was to try and put together coalition agreements that exclude both the EFF and the ANC. For more on what happened in that meeting and for the outcomes, we're joined now by ACDP leader, Reverend Kenneth Meshoe, and UDM leader, Mr. Bantu Holomisa. To both of our guests, thanks very much indeed for your time this morning. And I wonder, Mr. Holomisa, if we can begin with you this morning and, ask the question about the specific purpose of the meeting to exclude the ANC and the EFF. Why?
Well, you are asking a wrong person, because the meeting we attended yesterday was co-hosted by the Freedom Front Plus, but grateful to the Freedom Front Plus in that we viewed the meeting of yesterday as a continued exploratory talks amongst various political parties. So if you feel that that was the exclusion by us, no. But we enjoyed the meeting and we encouraged parties who are still involved in discussion, both with the DA, Action SA, EFF, and including ANC, because yesterday we got a briefing that some of the parties are still talking to the ANC. So your question falls away here.
Are you happy with the direction that the meeting took yesterday?
Yes, I'm happy because it was a meeting to explore, as I've said, but in particular, to interpret the decision of the voters, why the voters are spreading the power amongst various political parties in South Africa. What could be the reason? So we are not kids here like to be told, sleep with so-and-so, go and eat, do that, and so and so. So then constituencies, and we have the right to discuss such issues.
Reverend Meshoe, let me bring you into the discussion this morning, and perhaps I can put that question to you about, a meeting that is aimed at the exclusion of the ANC and the EFF. Is that something that you're in support of as the ACDP?
A simple, straightforward answer to that question is that regarding the ANC, their own supporters are punishing them for failing the country. Municipalities are in a mess. Corruption is at its highest, and the service delivery in some places is non-existent. In some places it is very, very poor. And when people are saying this ANC has failed us, and they say we are not even going to vote, it would not make sense for parties like the ACDP to say, let us rescue them, let us help them, when they are being punished by their own members. So the position of the ACDP is that because of the high levels of corruption in the ANC, we would not, our members who have given us a mandate, have said, try to work with other political parties, but definitely not the ANC. And so we are carrying out our mandate. We are doing what our supporters are saying we must do. While others have the liberty to go against what their supporters are saying, we don't have that liberty. We have to do what our voters are saying. And our voters are saying, negotiate with others, but not with the ANC.
Mr. Holomisa, in terms of what is on the table in these negotiations, can you take us into your confidence this morning and tell us, what is the UDM willing to negotiate with other parties when it comes to the issue of coalitions?
The Democratic Movement is open to discussion. What we cannot do is to come up with preconditions when you go to negotiation. That is the experience we have. And we will be flexible, but what Reverend Meshoe is saying makes sense in that the voters have, over the years, been sending a signal to the ruling party that you are not governing properly. Therefore, we are searching for an alternative. So we can't ignore that signal. But in the event that there is a need to work with the ANC, as we have done in the past, as we have done with the DA, we will look into that when we cross that bridge. But for now, we are saying to parties, go and talk to each other and make sure that we establish the municipalities quickly. However, one has to admit that at the time the laws of this country were made regarding the establishment of the council after election, no one had a provision of coalitions. And you will find that the period to establish these coalitions is a challenge currently. Maybe the Department of COGTA should seriously consider extending this up to about a month instead of 14 days to establish a council. I foresee some problems coming.
Reverend Meshoe, I suppose one of the big issues that your own supporters, the voters who went to the polls and made their marks next to your parties will be, as these coalition talks continue, that the manifesto that you presented to me as a voter might be compromised depending on who you go into agreement with. What do you have to say to your supporters on that score?
Well, at this time, we are not dealing with manifestos. There are a few principles that yesterday I suggested in the meeting have to be observed. Nobody's talking about manifestos now. The people just want to see and to have service delivery. But some of the principles I raised yesterday, the first important one, I said there has to be respect. Leaders and political parties must respect each other, must treat each other fairly. Because if we respect each other, it will be easy for us to respect the voters that we should be serving. So the issue of respect is paramount to the ACDP, and I'm glad to report that those who responded to that said that they agree with that. That's part of the foundation upon which they want agreements to be made. But I also raised the issue of transparency. It is not helpful for us to be talking to each other while behind our backs we are doing other things. As a result, we had to be open about who is talking to who has approached who, so that we can know that these things are happening. And the other one that I raised was the issue of honesty. People must be honest. We cannot trust each other, and for agreements and coalition to work well, there has to be trust. And one of the important things that will lead to that trust is honesty. We must be honest with each other. And obviously flexibility that my colleague has spoken about is important, that you go into a meeting to discuss how you're going to work together without hardened attitudes. You go in there to negotiate. As you know, that negotiate is about giving and taking, but if you go with a set mind, this is what I want and nothing else, and it doesn't have to do with policies, then that becomes problematic. So the issue of honesty, do we truly want to give the best to our voters, to our people, to communities? And if the answer is yes, then we need to make sure that we focus on what we should agree about and on the rules, the guidelines of how we are going to treat each other and how we are going to operate. This is what we are busy with now and not manifestos. I
want to talk to you more about what's next following yesterday's meeting. But Mr. Holomisa, can you weigh in on the issue of, and this is always an issue when it comes to local government election, the possibility of your party being a kingmaker and having a real role to play in the decision around who will govern some of the major metros. I mean, how much of influence do you reckon you wield on that score?
I have a question. Well, yesterday I did advise the meeting that we should desist from this talk of saying we can't talk to so-and-so, because it gives an impression that you are practicing some kind of discrimination. But anyway, coming back to your question, yes, we are always flexible. We have councillors, for instance, in Merafong, councillor in Merafong, Greater Johannesburg, Ekurhuleni, and so we will see, and as well as in Rustenburg. Then we will see as to whether there is a need for us to play a role there. But the role is, bottom line is that the service delivery must kick off immediately.
And then to my final question, Reverend Meshoe, what's next following yesterday's discussions?
We are hoping that areas of disagreement would be sorted out. We have had people who have come with positions in mind. This is what I want. This is what I want to get out of this meeting, out of this negotiation. And if I don't get this position, then I'm not moving forward. So we hope that as we have gone out to further consult other parties, to give other parties an opportunity to make up their minds, that they will find each other, and then will ultimately make an agreement that will ensure that our communities are transformed, that what we have seen the past few years will not be seen the next few years because of an arrangement that will be based on wanting to see people who are suffering getting the help they need, communities that are neglected getting the services they need. That is what is driving the ACDP. And I'm hoping that where there are areas of disagreement, that those areas will be attended to speedily by the political parties involved. Because our going to these meetings is to be part of the solution we want to have. And we have gone into those meetings with an open mind, because we know we are not dealing with policies, but we are dealing at this stage with working together. How to work together in order to produce desired results. That is what is motivating us, and I'm hoping that those parties that still are disagreeing, who's going to be the mayor, the here and here, and who are willing to be flexible, that when we meet again, that there will be a clear way forward, an agreement that this is how we are going to work to ensure that we give our people the best of the best service.
ACDP leader Reverend Kenneth Meshoe and UDM leader Bantu Holomisa, let me thank you both for your time this morning on the AM Report, talking all things coalition as that 14-day deadline since the declaration of the election results is nearing its end.